the panel discussion similar to our other sessions. So let's just jump right in. With more than 300 billion invoices sent between trading partners every year, there's more than 1 billion emails per day. We actually think this is an understated value, but right now each of these emails needs to be hand-researched and an email reply hand-composed. It's the primary channel to coordinate invoicing, payments, and bookkeeping between and within companies. And this trend is growing. So paper invoices still make up almost 40% of those 300 billion invoices. So you can see on this graph right here. And the vast majority of those will become email as the move to digital continues to gain traction. So by definition, less paper will equate to more email. So what does the content of these emails look like? When you look inside an accounting inbox, this is all the kind of subject lines or stuff that you're going to see. So where's my invoice? What's going on? There's status. Are people trying to figure it out? Can you send me a W-9 because I'm doing account setup? Is the vendor data accurate or current? You know, Lindsay gave a really great example in her last session around one of her friends that works in an AP department that didn't trust that the vendors are providing the right TIN numbers. And so they'd been fined thousands in the past, and you know, they had to spend the extra time validating these against the IRS database. So you can imagine the email overload, the overload of emails that need communicated. But it's not just all about that. And that's because coordinating all this stuff is collaborative. You've got to be in an alignment and doing all these activities back and forth between departments. It's a collaborative process, and email isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. To give you a sense of the workload, these are the results from interviewing over 50 accounting teams before we started Lockstep, which it also included over 1,000 surveys. Collaboration is a significant part of the work of AR and AP teams. When we inquired about these emails and follow-ups were being managed, the overwhelming response was either Outlook, Excel, Gmail, and Google Sheets, which posed some of their own challenges. The survey consistently showed that email is still the predominant tool for accounting departments to collaborate, and also that 50 to 70% of AR and AP time is spent within these tools. So as Lindsay mentioned, we wanted to launch our poll, and we've been doing this over webinars over the last several months. So if everyone could go ahead and take a moment to fill out this poll as it pops up on your screen. I'll just give it a few minutes for that to populate. And the question was, do you rely on Outlook and Excel as your primary tools for managing AR and AP? I'll give it just one more second. We're almost halfway. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. It looks like almost, similar to what we've seen in the past. Almost about 50% of departments rely on these tools to manage their AR and AP. So thank you, everyone, for taking that poll. We appreciate it. Let's keep going. So what we saw was inefficiencies being created by personal inboxes. Inefficiency means delay. Delays in AR and AP are cash traps. And this is a term you probably heard us mention over the last couple of days in several sessions. With no integration, it means data is constantly being manually transcribed between email and your ERP. With no automation, it means that follow-up, promise tracking, and dispute resolution is a manual process. And what does all this boil down to? These tools are not designed to manage team activity. And with no activity management, visibility into what got done isn't available, and it's hard to control, especially in a remote world. When we asked about the use of email addresses for the department, the vast majority had done so, something like AP or ar@company.com. But then there were different strategies for distributing those to members of the team. Some used a shared inbox from which emails migrated to personal inboxes. Others chose to use a distribution list to send to all inboxes. But in all these cases, the respondents said it was easy to have lack of ownership, multiple even conflicting responses. Then there's the reply all, everyone loves that. And inevitably, this all leads to email overload, And this doesn't even take into account all the other junk emails that you need to sift through throughout the day. At the core, the approach is most hampered by the use of personal inboxes to collaborate with trading partners. Once a response is sent from a personal inbox, the conversation gets trapped within that inbox. Bill Hensley on our last panel gave a great example of this within his own business. And then if that person is out of office or busy on another project, the conversation can stall. It's not visible to others on the team, and then suddenly it becomes a bottleneck. Of course, because there's multiple personal inboxes, there becomes more potential for these bottlenecks. And what if someone leaves the company or is on vacation? Requests and communication to that email address become a crack in which customers and vendor communications fall. All of this leads to a more reactive environment of dealing with escalations. Distribution lists don't solve the problem either. Your customer has a single point of contact, but no one on your side knows who is responsible for replying, which leads to lack of accountability. You have a high risk of double replies, potentially even with conflicting information within those replies. Distribution lists cause email overload in everyone's personal inbox, and in our world, overload is getting harder to sift through in your personal emails. With distribution lists, ultimately the work ends up in a personal inbox, so you're still stuck with the issue of no visibility and no way to understand status. The other option would be a shared inbox. While this approach, it can make confusion over responsibility clear, it's a pain to do. We interviewed several departments that had a full-time staff person to triage, and triage was a 2 to 3 times a day activity and was difficult to quickly triage emails and assign them to the correct person. Another issue is that if the email gets deleted from the shared inbox, it's gone forever. Because of triage, the shared inbox is just a stopping point back to the insufficient personal inbox where visibility and status are once again gone. And then you add in the dynamic of a pandemic. COVID-19 triggered a massive migration from working in the office to working from home. You can see how that rippled across the US. People were suddenly grabbing laptops and heading for home. I know when I went back to the office for the first time since March, there were coffee cups and plates just left on people's desks and almost like a ghost town somewhat, not knowing when they would be coming back. The combination of the pandemic's impact on cash flow and the remote work has exposed even more of the personal inbox cash traps. And in our current environment, there's an increased workload as the need to be in sync with trading partners has increased. Coordination among team members is harder on who is working on what, on top of the issues of paper, invoices, and checks. Who's going into the office to get those checks? Who's handling what, and what's the cadence around that? And of course, with liquidity being a key issue, there are more reporting requirements to keep stakeholders informed. So this is a lot of manual cut and paste, and at the end of the day, the more work spent on reporting means less time spent with vendors and customers. And let's face it, the new normal is going to be here for a while. The best case projection right now is that phase 4 for all of the US at least is at the end of 2021. And consequently, we're seeing the economy still have a lot of uncertainty, and we're seeing the need to better manage cash flow and liquidity for a while. In the new normal of remote work, whether you're going to be fully remote or partially remote, there are 4 things that you should be considering. Your team needs one workspace to coordinate the work and responses. There needs to be an effective way to assign and manage activities. Also, many of the menial tasks of completing an activity should be eliminated with smart automation. And to improve and manage requires robust activity reporting. I'm going to drill into these just a little bit more. So we talked about having one single point of contact for your customers. Having one workspace is how this can be accomplished. And in this example, this image, you can see that we're able to set up a workspace for the various teams. So you see the tabs for receivables team, payables, and we even have one for finance to do general ledging accounting. General ledger accounting, not ledging, but. And then also just to drill in a little bit more on this example, you can see this is a place where we registered the email to your workspace. In this example, you can see it says ap@lockstephq.com, and this is the one single point of contact that's going to be going to the entire team. On activity management, it's clear accountability. As I mentioned, accountability can become a barrier, so giving a clear owner to every email and activity so no customer vendor request falls through those cracks. On this example, you can see someone can go in and see what's mine. Additionally, there is a not assigned folder, so you can see a little bit more what's assigned to other people that's in a bucket, and that gives you visibility into what people were working on. You can click on these to find out the status of what people are working on, so no more bottlenecks, and you can actually search within this as well. And if you look a little bit closer to the bottom, under My Network, it organizes all the work according to each customer or vendor, which means I'm not having to go file that away, and it gives me a complete audit trail. On smart automation, it's all about how Outlook and Excel don't really help out that much at all. So they don't give you a good way to track where we are on this issue. This is one where an onboarding is taking place, and we can see the progress as a result of that. It also shows that you can record notes in these conversations, and you can even add phone calls. If you're not responsible for this, it can easily be reassigned. And if an approval is needed in the middle of this, you can ask for the approval. You can put it on snooze also and prompt a follow-up. And it also brings in other accounting data that you may need to bring into. If you think about it right now, there's no way to know who's worked on what today. Activity reporting lets you know immediately what got done, and as a result of that, you can maybe identify a team member who's not performing well to identify who needs more help. And on the flip side of that, you could also look at a staffing plan. So for example, you might see that people are being maxed out on work, and this type of reporting, you can go to your CFO and just say, hey, we're meeting our obligations, our SLAs are being followed, and we're getting things done. And then you can look for improvements if these types of situations come up. How can this be quantified though? These are the industry averages that can be quantified from having a team inbox. So you can potentially free up 6 hours per week for each team member. Your response time improves, 56 minutes faster response time, and an overall 18% increase in team productivity as well. This also improves cash flow. So these are just a few examples of how this can trickle down, reducing late payments or getting paid faster. But specifically, I wanted to call it the last bullet. When teams aren't collaborative, it can lead to unexpected issues. So for example, late processing of invoices can lead to disruption of future supply, and sometimes resulting in lost payment discounts. Identifying vendor invoices you do not have allows you to request the vendor to resend these documents, often with proof of delivery, any paid valid invoice timelessly. This keeps you and your vendors in a good place to avoid service cancellations. So I wanted to just then start our panel discussion. So I wanted to introduce everybody. Joining us for our panel today is going to be Mike Melka, the CFO at Avenue Insights, David Appel, who is head of software and SaaS at Sage Intacct, and Matt Shanahan, who's Lockstep's Chief Strategy Officer.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Mike, good to see you again. David, so we've had a chance to kind of chat ahead of time about the topic of collaboration. Before we jump in there, Mike, I was hoping you could give a little background on who Avenue Insights is and kind of your customers that you serve. I think you may be on mute, Mike.
You guess. They make a shirt now for that. I'm on mute, sorry.
Yeah.
So thank you again. Happy to be here. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. So Avenue Insights, we sell software and services to local governments. So we support various divisions and agencies within a local government, from software to manage taxes and courts and pensions to being their outsourced IT department. So we have a wide variety of services that we offer state and local governments, as well as helping those governments kind of find lost tax revenue, if you will. So we're really busy these days, and we'll be in the foreseeable future given the COVID-19 pandemic, as we help to keep those local governments afloat.
Thank you for sharing that. And David, I don't know if you could give everybody just a little bit of background about Sage Intacct.
Of course, and good afternoon or good morning, everybody. I'm looking at the list. Several of you are customers. Thank you, and all of you obviously interested in Lockstep. My name is David Apple. I run the software business at Sage Intech, which means I spend a lot of time on where's the puck going, on what people are going to want, and putting that into the product so people just have fantastic experiences with even better insights on what's happening in the business, and a lot more life-work balance on automation, like what we're going to talk about today, takes away all the mundane things to make the job a bummer, and get into what the fun part of it is when I talk to a lot of finance leaders, which is finding patterns in the data that the people didn't see that can make a material impact to the business. And your automation on the front end, like Matt, it's really interesting pulling that together. So back over to you.
Great, thank you. Mike, you know, you've been a customer for about a year. And one of the first conversations I remember just after you joined, we got together and I was asking kind of, you know, why you purchased and what you were looking to get from Anytime Collect. And towards the end of the conversation, I remember you saying, hey, I've got another idea for you. You should do something with email. I'd love for you to kind of share your perspective on how you got to that thinking and what you were thinking at that point in time.
Yeah, so, you know, and it's still a problem, and we all know you've looked into it, but really, you know, we started this business as a carve out, so a divestiture of a small part of a larger company. So in the early days of Avenue's genesis, you know, I was doing everything, right? I was AP, I was everybody. You know, so it was important that I had, you know, the AP email address, frankly, for vendors, and but I've seen this elsewhere, but you know, I've seen it firsthand. Like I was spending double time just managing email, what box was I supposed to be in, and then as I grew my team, they too were struggling. You know, and with these new businesses, we make a lot of acquisitions. The new acquired businesses in our portfolio, those team members, they don't know who to go to, so they're just sending new requests to AP, for example, and our AP people, what do I do? Or then they'd reply, you know, based out of the shared email box, or they'd, you know, reply from that personal email box. And it was, let's be honest, we were missing the ball. We were, you know, there's just inundated with mistakes. All the problems we talked about earlier, I mean, we've had them all, frankly, and it was a huge pain point, you know, and there really was no tool available. And that's kind of the genesis of where we got, you know, how you and I talked and spoke about. That's my pain point. And I think, you know, at its core, Anytime Collect has that functionality, allows us that kind of management, but I'm still left with the query part of it, right? I'm still left with the management and assignment. Now we've like tripled our billing team, for example, you know, and if one of them's out, there's no real mechanism for us to avoid the duplicate efforts, to avoid the, you know, the follow-up, the multiple follow-ups or missed follow-ups, frankly. So it's still a problem, and you know, the flags in Outlook only go so far, if you know what I mean. So it's a real problem for us, and we too have to put in dedicated time and dedicated headcount to simply manage and as I like your word, triage what needs. So you know, we have that kind of allocator, scheduler, if it were, but it's really unnecessary in my mind with all the technology that's available. So I'm quite excited about what we have here.
That's great. David, I'm not sure what you've seen, you know, just in terms of solutions that might be trying to tackle this problem, or your thoughts on it?
Well, go way big picture for a second. This is the trend. Digital transformation is the trend right now. There's a session I was on earlier as one of our investors. It's called Bessemer Venture Partners, talking about the Cloud 100. And in 2010, the market capitalization of the top 100 cloud firms was 40 billion. In 2015, it was 100 billion. And now, earlier this year, pre-pandemic, the market capitalization of the top 100 cloud firms is $1 trillion. So it just shows this massive tidal wave of what's happening right now. And you laid it out so well, Whitney, up front. You know, we're going to go a little deeper into it as a panel for all of you. But you can go on down the list of the processes that could get improved, and so much of AP/AR is still paper. Gosh, what was the number you had, Whitney, of how many paper transactions are still happening? And there's cash tied up with all that, and cash is royalty with running a business. So I think getting a couple of specific examples we'll be able to tell. But this is the trend, and if you haven't already started initiating it now, it's be wise to get ahead of it, both in your companies that you're running and then as well as the processes that you're doing.
So that gets into kind of a question that I've got, sort of if I take it from your big picture and bring it down. As you mentioned, there's all these software companies, cloud companies, that are building solutions to automate process. Salesforce is clearly one of those in the top 100. And you think about it, it's activity management really for sales teams. That's how it got started. What are my salespeople doing? What activities are they doing? You also have that actually, I'm sure in that top 100 is Zendesk, and it's got to be in there. And they do activity management for a support team, right? What are the support tickets? Who's working on what? How do I get this done? Et cetera. And you go in even into IT. There's some things like Jira, right, that do that or whatnot. But then you get to accounting, and they have Outlook and Excel. Like, why is that?
I've got some answers. I don't know if all of you, because there's so many of you on the line, if you want to type in the chat your answer to that very same question, whether you want to give the honest answer or you're a smart aleck and you want to give a funny answer, I'd still be interested in reading that. I talk to customers.
Please share it.
Please, if you want, and stop doing email and throw something in the chat, Whitney, or we can
while we're waiting,
aggregate it. But
while we're waiting, David, my reason, frankly, well, isn't that what we pay Intact for, right? And that's the question I give for my leadership team, and they don't get it. Oh, well, you guys have an accounting system that should handle that. Well, it doesn't work, right? And it's almost, there's other business priorities than giving the accounting team a project management tool. We're not project managers. Well, let's try to retrofit a Salesforce, right? Well, yeah, I guess I can do that, but then now I'm over managing Salesforce, and am I really getting the subscription value out of that? So I think, we've seen Salesforce do a great job in that, but for us, it's a tough, it just even forget cost for a minute, it's a tough sell to my leadership team. Oh, we need a separate system and for just our accounting people. And it's just very, how do I put it? It just seems like another disintegrated system that, amongst the various others, it's never a priority is what I'm trying to get at here. And it wasn't for my operations team and my leadership team to make that kind of push, if it were.
And what would make
it
a priority? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Well, Mike, I was going to say, it's just a classic issue, right? Is put in GL as the core, and then what are the processes on the outside of that you want to prioritize? And sometimes you can be proactive about it. Sometimes you got to be reactive toward a business is coming. Because I think the answer for many of you, when I talk to folks, is just habit. And what makes people change habit? My father always said, growing up, people change with pain. And so where does this come on the pain chain on issues? But because it's tied to cash flow, if you think about it, if you say to the executive team, oh, we just need, not that you said this, Mike, but when I talk to other people, when you're just saying we need to change something in order to make accounting's life better, it's kind of like, maybe I could put that money into a sales headcount instead. You always lose that battle. But when you say we could improve DSO 7%, which or 7 a week, which is could be a healthy chunk of operational cash flow, and we can get pulling this kind of operational cash flow, then all of a sudden people are like, well, that's a pain worth addressing. That's a adjacent process to the GL that's worth getting connected. I know that's a little bit of the Avenue Insights. Sure, yeah. Good leadership is you guys have stack ranked with processes you want to tackle to automate, and then it's delivering great business benefits. That's right.
Absolutely. No, and that's exactly what we found in conversations with other customers as well. If it's just about time savings, as terrible as that sounds, it sort of falls on deaf ears. On the other hand, if that time savings directly correlates to cash flow, getting rid of these cash traps, then it changes the conversation dramatically. Whether it's capturing early payment discounts as a part of a strategy, whether it's just paying on time to avoid, a cancellation of a service, those are all things that, that impact the business. So tying it to real business results seems to be the key. There was one of the audience members said, I totally agree with Mike. Another one actually said, so it's one of our customers, they said, we're an accounting firm, and that's what we were using before I researched and went with Anytime Collect, LOL. So there's certainly some things in there. I think the other part, for both of you, again, because you have such good perspective on the marketplace, is just how has remote work kind of impacted the mindset of the tools people are using?
I'll have to jump in. So for us, it was a necessity. Our clients are local governments, and they're, in today's day and age, what do they call them? Like essential businesses, right? So that means we have to support them, and we can't falter. But yet, all of our team here, we're stuck at their house. And a great example is, we do have clients that ask us for paper invoices, and I hate admitting that, but we do. Well, I couldn't have my billing team all come in just to mail the stuff, and I'm certainly not going to, they don't need high output printers, So it really forced us to think outside of our own box. And, even though we did have to mail these, certain invoices, I found a way I can just email a PDF and some other company will do it for me. Like, well, that's awesome, right? Not the long-term solution I want because, it's not the cheapest, but we figured it out. And I think companies now are figuring it out. I think for us, there's a certain element of, we didn't want to be remote. We didn't know that there was a mechanism to track people's efficiency, right? I think it's like, are people just going home? How can we measure them if we can't see them? How, and there is an element of, I like to walk the hall, I like to be with my team, but at the same time, like, look, we're doing this out of necessity, and we're seeing these solutions and adoptions come to play. We're seeing clients who are now all of a sudden adopting DocuSign when before they needed my wet signature all the time. And, like, I'm so, like, that to me is just a huge, huge win, but it's really becoming out of necessity. And I'll give one example. Local governments, they get annual budgets, and they, they don't get that money always back the following budget year. So they're coming to us, they can't pause what they're doing. They have to make those municipal investments. So we need to help them with that. And we help them over that hump. We helped a lot of cities and counties move remotely when otherwise they would have never thought of it. So for me, I look at the pandemic as, highlighting the necessity of it and highlighting the accessibility to make that transition. And it's not as hard as we all might have thought.
I've seen just two simple things. First off, it's forced people to think through the processes more. And then second, it's changed how relationships work. People you got along with before, it's really easy to get along with now. People you didn't get along with before, it's almost easier now because you don't have to see them or deal with them, but you could just send you're forced to send in an email or some sort of connecting point that way, but you still got to move things along. It's amazing that what I've seen time and time again in well-run companies is people are finding a way to look beyond little Game of Thrones they might have been futzing around with before. And what are we going to do to really survive and grow the business right now? And it's been healthy, and it's back to why there's so much. I mean, look at the stock value of Zoom. It was a good company before, but my gosh, look at it now. And that's just representative, though. That's one example. And I keep going to Lockstep because I'm a fan. And why all of you are on this line right now is there's so much value to automation right now that to go after either one of those trends. Either if you got along with people, you make things more fluid, or you didn't get along with people, you can still automate so you don't have to deal with them.
So it's interesting, Mike, that you brought up the question of how do you know what people are doing? That's one of the biggest things about remote work. I don't know if how many people may have read the book called Remote, but as soon as remote kicked in, you realize the only thing you can measure is the work. And so that becomes the metric by which you say, what got done today, not how many hours did somebody spend in, because even if they were in, you don't know if they're maybe shopping on Amazon or something else. It's kind of like, what's really going on here?
Yep.
So I think that's the other thing that it exposed is, just this, how do I measure the impact of my team today? Because, I'm curious for you in a remote situation, what you're doing to kind of keep on top of that.
So obviously, we can see, various metrics like customer sat. We can obviously see DSO, so I know our collectors are doing their jobs. My agings aren't going the wrong direction. But in terms of the day-to-day, I don't have that. I saw the metrics on the demo slides, and I really want that. I want to be able to say, not only look, here's what everybody's doing, and here's the velocity that we can maintain, but I also, what's great about metrics, and people often forget, is metrics help users and employees demonstrate their value, right? It helps me be able to compensate them. It helps me in terms of, showing their outperformance, instead of, just assuming things are getting done, being able to demonstrate that uptick in output and productivity, and then correlate that with DSO going down or DPO being managed or what have you. So I think that's one thing that often gets looked at, lost in this whole thing is, the positive to the user and the employee as well. So that's one thing I'm, quite excited for, the Lockstep solution to bring, is that visibility. So I can both manage, but also incent.
And that's, you bring up a great point about, how do you measure what you're doing? One of the things about DSO is it's kind of a lagging indicator. So the activities you do this month will impact the DSO next month, right? So how do you sort of get ahead of that and measure impact today for what you're looking for tomorrow?
Yep.
And David, any of your thoughts on that?
Well, data is the new oil, and any process you can automate can produce the data. And so, Mike, just what you laid out, I've just seen happen hundreds and hundreds of times over and over again. And we're all back to what this is. This is about expenses and revenues. So it's all about cash flow. And that's just so critical to the business. I'm interested that some of you responded in the chat, others didn't. Just when you're still doing it automated, eventually what we find is when you're still doing it manually in paper, some trigger point happens and something just gets missed or slipped. And then that's what drives the impact of the change. But then it's like all the converted, once the people who do it, just like Mike, look how excited you are that you've done it and the impact that it's made. It's just like, it's like firing somebody who you just knew you had to let go of for a long time, but you never did it. But once you've done it, you're like, gosh, why didn't I do that sooner? So.
Yeah. And that it brings up a good point about just kind of the current environment of, we've talked to other panelists about this in other sessions, which is, currently in the past, I think there was this focus on growth. How do I put investment into sales and marketing, right, to grow my revenue? How do I get new products out, right, so I can get new market share and expand or beat the competition? So investments were flowing over there, and it seemed like in a lot of cases, operationally and even the back office was sort of getting the short stick in terms of priorities, just because the priorities were growing towards growth. With the pandemic, I'm curious if that's balancing out a little bit more. Mike, your thoughts on that, especially the role you're in.
Yeah, so I see, well, I think it got easier to have that conversation with the pandemic, akin to the necessity of going remote. But I also think that finding the right way to do it and showing the ability to turn that into bottom line investment and bottom line value. And, like we were talking about the metrics measuring the team, imagine, wink, wink, if that could also then be correlated to those DSO activities, in say our collection system, you know, to be able to really extrapolate that value. And even in the inverse way, you know, to say, look, our team is spending great example, my FP&A team, before we automated that group, they were spending 70% of the time just gathering data. There was just no time to actually look at it, you know. But that argument, that methodology, or, you know, looking at your email box or getting on subject, you know, just quantifying that amount of time, I mean, anybody can wrap their head around it. And that's where we need to start. And I think those analyses have been undergone. And that's why we're starting to see this shift. And I think that, yes, COVID-19 greased the skids, if it were. But I think that's the, you know, that's the path we need to go. Real measurable data to show that, look, this just logically doesn't make sense. And that's the investment pitch.
That makes sense. David, what have you seen in terms of kind of shift of priorities towards some more operational type projects?
Well, gosh, going down the list, so many industries. We support a lot of nonprofits, and in a lot of ways, donors are down. We support a lot of financial services firms. A lot of ways, new fundings are down. Just going down the list for those of you on the line right now, is you got to find a way to do more with less. And this is I'm back to the same thing I keep saying that you all know. This is about cash flow. So if there's one thing to focus on at the top of the list, it's cash flow.
Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to come back to the Salesforce Zendesk kind of analogy. It's not just a technology component that's in there. It's really then skill set. So when you think of Salesforce, there's usually a sales ops person who knows Salesforce and can customize it and move it around. And so, you know, there's that technology skill set. And you go into support, again, there's going to be somebody to do it from a support perspective, or, you know, there's even marketing ops, right, to do the marketing automation. Curious your thought about kind of the evolution of accounting. I mean, does there need to be an accounting ops role? Do we need more IT skill sets in accounting? What's your thought there? Where are we, and where should we be? Are we where we need to be?
Well, it does happen. And I run our software business, so I'm most prominent there, and it's kind of somewhere north of 50 million a year when you can, and someone decides to invest in more operations in order to scale. Generally, if they're on trying to go through a major acquisition or get acquired by a private equity firm or do an IPO, that a lot of systems work needs to come in, and then they hire somebody, generally in IT, in order to do that. The question is it going to come downstream? And in tech, again, a new role started popping up called revenue operations, and which is trying to figure out the billing model. And I see, though, some revenue operations leaders getting into trying to handle improving cash flow. And so they're very top of mind, and they're already digital transformation and automation minded, starting to pull this in. So it's kind of those two macro trends are coming on. Several, I mean, you can see some of you who are on our tech firms, many of you aren't. So that may or may not be happening in your trend, but just be aware, tech being on the, I don't know, not that it's the only space like this, but being progressive in its use of technology, that's what the leading trends are right now.
That's interesting.
I would agree with that. And it's funny, you're talking about adding sales ops and revenue ops and stuff, and I'm trying my best not to. And I'm trying to throw technology to everything. You know, I think from a philosophy perspective, you know, I like to bring on utility players. You know, I like to bring on, you know, just great people and just to maintain my horizontal organization that we have, you know, but you can never argue with data. So the more data you have and the more automation you have, you know, the better you're able to scale and address that size growth or, you know, as you double your organization, let's say. And, you know, we're not to where we need those kind of, you know, separate financial systems departments as they were. We're still, I'll call us a medium-sized business, but I'm holding on to my utility players as it stands, but in throwing technology at it. I use that loosely, but, you know, that's why I have Anytime Collect. That's why I have, you know, a dozen or so other systems talking to my financial system in Intact to automate absolutely everything I can.
The good thing about great utility players is, well, just say utility players already showed that they learn fast.
Yeah.
And so as you grow, they often stay and grow with you and perhaps get more specialized as the function gets a little more, right? There's a head of treasury, there's a head of FP&A, there's a head of this, a head of that. But you can trust them, they're high integrity and a high motor, and then they learn fast. And that's the people that help you really become a great company.
And I think there's just one thing I feel really passionate about saying is that, you know, by philosophically, by when you put systems in place, you know, not only does it reduce the need to say, you know, add staff as you grow, it kind of helps you scale quicker. But what it does is it really helps your existing team to grow, because it gives them the tools and the infrastructure to let the business run itself. That way, the more automation you have, the more those teammates can elevate themselves. Those billing clerks can see what matters to an organization. They can keep aligned with us trying to pivot to more of a subscription model, if that were something. You know, automation frees up my team that I can help them grow. You know, so not only am I avoiding the future expense of having to add people as I grow, but I can really elevate the teammates that I have. And that's a tremendous kind of selling point for myself in terms of technology internally.
Absolutely. I
always remember one more thing on that.
Oh, absolutely. Please.
Add one. So, because I'm always for all of you listening, this is all, we're putting our time in because we want to help you. But maybe I'd throw something out is, in your head right now, just who on your team do you truly trust? You just take an honest assessment of it. And then I don't know what your culture is, what your processes are, but maybe in the next review or next conversation is ask them, what processes would you automate? And when they come back to you with that list, then challenge them a little bit into, and how would we define like success on that and get the ROI, putting $1 to automate that process for something else, and come back to me in 2 days or a week and see what they come back to you with. And my guess is, because I've done this many times, you'll be pleasantly surprised on the ideas, and two things happen. You run better as a business, and the whole point that Mike was just making and why he's such a great leader and team working for him so fortunate is people will feel listened to and learned, heard, and appreciated, particularly if you're able to take that ROI into the investment to get things in. So that's a really profound thing you just said there, Mike. Matt, excuse me for speaking over you.
No, you add great viewpoints, and I really appreciate, and especially for our customers and prospects, really appreciate the insights that you're providing. It does remind me that both of your comments reminds me of the expression that I'd rather be working on the business than in the business, right? And so I think that's a mindset of saying that you're always wanting to make it better and improve it, and empowering people to do that with technology and other things is a great way to go. So your perspectives are awesome. I really want to thank both of you for carving out time for this conversation. I know everybody got value from it. Certainly, let's hopefully keep the conversation going. And Mike, thank you for being a customer, and David, thank you for being a great partner. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. For all of you listening, go ahead, Mike, please.
I just said thank you for what you do.
Much.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's cool technology you built. And for all of you listening, I hope we helped. So good luck running your businesses. And thank you for inviting us, Matt. Very happy and proud sponsors of the conference. So
thank you. Whitney, if we go to the next slide. I did want to, again, reiterate the Lockstep Early Access Program. So if you go to lockstephq.com, you can register there for access to the team inbox. So that's the team activity management that we just talked about and that Whitney previewed a little bit. So we'd love to be able to get you on board with that and take advantage of it, and visit lockstephq.com to register for it. In addition to that, wanted to point out that connectedaccounting.org is an online community that we launched really to talk about digital transformation trends. You know, how do we get off paper and move into digital? If you've got questions about that, you're kind of pondering that. We had a question the other day that said, you know, how do I get my larger customers willing to, you know, click into my online statements when they say they can't use a portal? So, you know, the digital transformation has its challenges, and we want to be able to work as a community to kind of unpack those and help you take advantage of it. So it's a place to talk about strategies. It's a place to talk about skill sets, challenges. You know, feel free to take advantage of it. We'll work with you there. Again, thank you to the panelists. Whitney, great presentation, and to all the customers and other individuals that joined us. You know, I hope you got value from our session. We appreciate your support, and have a fantastic rest of the day.